Welcome to the Shamrock Green Room, your favorite podcast highlighting everything about Scotus Central Catholic and Columbus Catholic schools. Each episode, we discuss what it's like to be a Shamrock. Whether that is a current student, a teacher, an alum, or supporter, we want to hear your stories on why this is such a special place in education. I'm your host, Jon Brezenski, 1998 graduate, former boys head soccer coach, assistant football coach, and current assistant coach for the girls soccer program. Today, I'm joined by Kim Dreesen. Kim is a 1998 Scotus graduate. She is a longtime friend since we met each other back in junior high. Kim is also a 2011 Scotus Hall of Fame inductee and has been heavily involved in Scotus on many different levels and is currently a Scotus Gala chair. I'm excited to have her here today in the Shamrock Green Room. Kim, welcome to the podcast. It's going to be fun.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Obviously, we've been friends for a long time, so I think this is going to be kind of fun just to rehash some things out for our listeners out there.
Yes, we might not be able to share everything, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, obviously the Rickard name's well known to Scotus. Just give us the list, give the listeners a background on your family.
Sure. My parents are Bob and Marlene Rickard, and they both grew up around Columbus, Platte Center area. And my dad graduated from Columbus High in 1965, and mom graduated from Scotus in 1969. And then they got married, had 5 kids, and all of us went to St. Bon's and then to Scotus. And Aaron graduated in 1990, Chris 1993, myself 98, Josh 2001, and Jared 2006.
Okay.
So grew up on a farm east of Columbus. Pretty simple life growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't have all the club sports, and my dad owned a trucking business, so they expected a lot of us, from the kids to help out, around the farm and the business, and so sports wasn't a priority, and,
Kind of instilled some work ethic in the whole crew.
Oh, 100%. I mean, my older brothers for sure were out there in the shop helping my dad after school, and, I was inside. I had all the housework, so some days I wanted to be outside in the shop because I
working for mom.
Yeah. I want to go outside.
Yeah. So, obviously you had 5 kids, 4 older siblings. You're the only girl in the family. What was that like just growing up as the only female in the house?
I think my brothers want to say that I was spoiled in a way, but, it was a lot of fun. Aaron and Chris were the older 2, and then Josh and Jared were the younger 2, and so it was a fun dynamic. There was wrestling going on, but then there were times where we were playing games or video games, and it was all good. It was a great growing up childhood, and, my parents worked hard and gave us any opportunity and every opportunity to just grow and learn new things. So.
Yeah. What did your mom do?
She helped with the business. So she was a stay-at-home mom, but she answered all of the trucking phone calls coming in. And
So you guys ran that from the house then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Dad had his office in the house, and so whenever we were dinking around, Dad would be like, "Be quiet, I'm answering phones."
Oh, sure. Always working.
Always working.
He's a hard worker.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously with having some brothers, that had to, just around the house, competing with them or just playing with them, probably toughened you up a little bit, I would think.
Oh, yeah. And, Aaron and Chris, they played football at Scotus. And then, as I got older, I'd always pull Josh and Jared outside and say, "Hey, let's play one-on-one basketball," or, let's throw the softball or the baseball or whatnot. So, yeah, I probably toughened them up more than they toughened me up.
Well, you've always been pretty tough, so I don't want to sugarcoat you too much on this thing today. So you went to St. Bon's. Your entire family went to St. Bon's. What do you remember about any good elementary stories or elementary memories throughout those years?
I remember playing a lot of Heads Up, 7-Up at school, but junior fire patrol, getting to know the other kids from St. Anthony's, St. Isidore's.
Because we didn't really know. I went to St. Anthony's through 5th grade, and then I went to St. Isidore's for 6th grade only. But you didn't really, and so I kind of knew some kids from different schools, and then maybe knew a couple. I didn't really know you at all in elementary school, but knew some of the guys just through different sports. But yeah, we didn't really intermingle like the kids do today. Quite a bit different.
Right. I'd say introduction into sports for me was City League softball, slow pitch softball at the Armory.
Oh yeah.
And it seemed like all of us girls were on different teams. I was on the same team as Holly Van Akron. Somehow I think her dad found a way to get me in.
Yeah.
And that probably, introduced the competitiveness amongst us all. So I just remember that. I mean, just kind of getting familiar with the different faces of kids that when I went to Anthony's and Isidore's and identifying, who was going to be some athletes and whatnot. But, in 5th and 6th grade, they had intramurals for basketball. Coach Peterson had that going on. And I remember my 5th grade year, I asked Mom and Dad, can I do this? And Mom's like, no. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And because they had practice on Saturdays and then games were after church on Sundays.
I remember that too, because boys had a similar program.
Yeah, and I didn't get to go out my 5th grade year, but I'd always get to go to sleepovers. And I remember one particular weekend that Amanda Hilger had me over, and she was in the intramurals. And the next day on Sunday, I'd go to the games, and Coach Peterson would be like, why are you not out for this? So I can't. My mom and dad won't let me.
Yeah.
But eventually, my 6th grade year, I was able to do the intramurals. But, I was pretty raw. I was not a naturally gifted athlete. That's for sure. I was tall. That was probably what was going for me, basically. But, it was good. It was introduction to all the fundamentals. And
through the intramural program.
Yeah.
Who were some of your teachers you remember at St. Bon's?
I remember Sister Dolores was my 3rd grade teacher. Miss Lang was my 2nd grade teacher, and that is Christy's aunt.
Aldi?
Yes.
Yeah. And
then I had a Miss Chohan. She was 4th grade. I was way taller. I think she was about 5 foot. I think I was taller than her the entire school year. And Mrs. Corgi was my 5th grade teacher.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'd remember her on a positive note, but she was
tough.
She was tough.
Yeah.
And
kind of instilled that ability to study.
There was no messing around in that class.
Yeah.
But
well, so you transition over to Scotus then as a 7th grader in '92, in the fall of '92, when our class came over. And so now you're starting to meet some new people, you're starting to get involved kind of in the junior high sports, obviously with junior high volleyball, and then through basketball. So you got a couple of years there. What do you remember about kind of those couple junior high years?
I remember coming into 7th grade math, probably the first day, and I think I was kind of laughing at probably one of the boys. And I think Miss Picaric, she laid down the law. She was like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Kim Rickert." And she's, "Oh, you're one of those Rickerts. Like, who are your brothers?"
Yeah.
And she pretty much set the tone of, okay, we're here for learning and don't be messing around.
Yeah.
But she was very intimidating at first, but once you got to know her and you respected her, she was a phenomenal teacher and a good friend, because I ended up having her as a QFC. Right?
Oh yeah, Quality Family Connections.
Yeah.
We were in the same one, I think.
Were we in Miss Picard?
Yeah.
And then she taught us how to play pitch.
Yes.
We had pitch tournaments.
Yep.
And so I remember that. That was good. That was awesome. And then just something that kind of helped me, I guess, increase my volleyball and basketball IQ was that Coach Peterson would ask some of the 8th graders to be stat keepers for all of the basketball and volleyball games. And so I was one of the lucky ones, and maybe a few others that got to do that. And we got to sit behind the bench and do all that and just watch the girls, watch the leadership, watch the team chemistry, watch the game, and learn. So I think that helped because, once again, I wasn't thrown in. My parents did not play sports, and so I just had to learn kind of as I grew.
Yeah. So that was just kind of a good way to be around the program, instill some of those things that obviously we'll get into here later on.
Yeah. And for junior high sports, I had Coach Lexinger as a volleyball coach, and he's still part of the program, which is so fun to see. And I just remember 8th grade basketball. There was one particular morning. I lived out on the farm, so it took us 15 minutes to get into town, and I overslept for a practice. And we had 6 a.m. practice, and I think by the time I got to school, there was probably about 20 minutes left of practice, and I had Kathy Ewers as our basketball coach. And I get to school, flustered as ever, and I look down, I don't even have my basketball shoes with me. I had like the leather tie-up Eastland shoes. And she's, okay, start running. Start running around the court, And I was just, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I don't even have regular shoes on.
Yeah.
But that pretty much taught me not to oversleep, at least in junior high.
Yeah. What were, like in those junior high years, what were some of those favorite classes that you remember?
Probably Math 7 and, I don't know, maybe religion.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty good at that.
Math was always fun because I do, talking about Mrs. Pekarik. I mean, she was amazing. And some of the other guests on the podcast, whether they've been teachers or alums, have mentioned Mrs. Pekarik as well. I mean, she was tough, and she did set the tone, but at the same time, she had a pretty warm heart.
Oh, for sure. She was like a grandma.
Yeah.
And she kind of just took us all in as her own, and she was so kind. I mean, we'd go in. I mean, I remember in algebra, Andrea Torzen and I would go in every morning and ask questions, and that woman would just be so patient with us.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember that a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe some world geography with Mr. Pitts.
Yeah, the World Geo project, major projects.
Yeah.
He was obviously made things entertaining as young kids in the school system. So, but you were kind of like, oh man, this is Mr. Pitts. You gotta listen up.
Right. We'd always have to make the big poster boards of every single country that we're learning, and it was good.
Yeah. So you start to make your mark as a freshman in basketball. We'll kind of skip over freshman volleyball, but you make your mark in freshman year in basketball in '95 as the season goes on, and really kind of get into a pretty meaningful role as that team goes throughout the year, makes a state final. End up losing to Hastings Adams Central in a really good game, but just kind of reflect on, I guess I'd say, growth, because you really hadn't started playing sports, like you said, until junior high. So, I mean, you're really fairly pretty raw athlete at the time. But you get into this role, and really you develop into a really good basketball player your freshman year. So what do you remember about that freshman season as it progressed?
I thought I was very fortunate because we didn't have very many girls that went out for basketball coming into my freshman year. I think we had a lot of drop-off from 8th to 9th grade, and even in the upperclassmen, there was some maybe juniors that quit, and so there was a window of opportunity to really work hard and maybe get into a JV role or a varsity position. And I think the first part of the season, Carrie Grell tore ACL, and then that kind of gave us an opportunity, like I said, to just fill in that spot. Between Christy and I think we were kind of bouncing around there trying to figure out positions of who's going to be the post, who's going to be the guards, and whatnot. But, I mean, I had some great upperclassmen ahead of me. I mean, I had Angie Rusher, who was a senior, that she kind of took me under her wing and just helped me develop as a post player. And I had Carmen Burback and Rhea Wimhoff, and, I mean, those girls are tough, too.
Yeah.
And so I never felt there was, bad energy between all of us. I mean, we were all working for one goal.
Yeah.
And so it was so much fun just to be with him. And Coach Miller was the post coach.
Yeah.
So that guy, he would get the football pads out and be banging up against us.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he, everybody wanted to say he was Killer Miller, but, I mean, the guy has a heart of gold.
Yes, he does.
And, he's kind of a softie, I think, in this day and age, but, he is a great coach.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he just drilled in the basic fundamentals and wanted everything to be just right. But, it's upperclassmen that really pushed me to be a better player, I'd say.
And those girls that you mentioned were really good leaders too, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think they probably understood the importance that you and Christy had to the team as that season went.
Yeah.
But yeah, just reflect on Coach Miller a little bit. we had Mr. Peterson on here a couple weeks ago, and he talked obviously highly of Mr. Miller. From your perspective, just give us a player's perspective of Coach Miller.
He meant business. He would always have these grand ideas of certain drills, and everybody would be like, what the heck, But I would say, as the years went by, we had a good relationship, and I respected him, and I don't know, he must have felt like he saw something in me, because I felt Like, he really put in a lot of time and energy into, especially the post players, like all of the post players. But he really kind of helped me grow and make me a better player. He challenged me, and that's what I appreciate. He cared about us, and I mean, he'd be hard on us, but he's something else. And still now to this day, he will bring up about every other state championship or this district final or that district final or a practice, and it's good stuff.
I always think it's so awesome. You know, sometimes you show up to a game, whether it's on the road or at home, and you walk into the gym, and there he is. Like, you know, he's the ref for the game, and it's always so fun to see you and Christy, because you guys hold him into a high regard. And, you know, and it's really neat to watch you guys go up and give him a hug and talk to him. You know, we've taken pictures. You guys taking pictures with him over the years. So obviously, his impact on you both and anybody that he's coached has been really, really significant, I think.
Yeah, and I've given him calls here and there just asking about coaching advice, or even just as a parent, you know, how to respond to this or that. And he always gives me a good, you know, food for thought, and just he's a great friend. Yeah,
he is. So, you know, in high school, and I remember when this happened, you know, you tear your ACL. When did that occurred in the summertime, correct?
That occurred at the end of my sophomore year. So it was basketball camp. And we always
in the summer.
In the summer.
So going into your junior year.
Right.
Yeah.
And so basketball camp was always the week after Memorial Day. And it was the last day of basketball camp, and we always played one-on-one, knockout, just kind of fun games. And I was playing one-on-one with Holly in Akron. And I mean, I think it was the last point too. And I jump stopped and popped.
And it went.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh. Because I thought at that time, going into my junior year, I was going to have a pretty good shot at playing right side for the volleyball team. But I didn't know that for sure. But I just thought, okay, I'm a lefty. Maybe I'll get that opportunity. And, you know, I was thinking about that and just everything. You know,
everything
I got
goes through your head in a short, quick amount of time.
Yeah. And I remember Coach Peterson, he went with my mom and I down to Lincoln to my appointment to find out that I tore my ACL. And that was probably the few days after. But I went to Germany that summer on
I remember that
German trip with Andrea. And I was thinking, I'm not going to miss that.
Yeah.
And so I went in June with the torn ACL to Germany, and then I came back and had ACL surgery.
Okay.
Like around the 4th of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that? Well, who did the surgery? Who did the surgery for you?
Dr. Pat Clare.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so you obviously had a great surgeon.
Yes.
What do you remember about that rehab? Because, you know, obviously in my profession I deal with those things. But what do you remember about that road back, just mentally, physically?
It was tough. I mean, especially I knew I was going to miss out the whole volleyball season, and knowing that they were going to be an awesome team.
Yeah, probably best team in school history, really.
I mean, nationally rated.
Yeah.
And so I missed out on all of that. But I was manager.
Yeah.
But
so you still had a role. I mean, you had an impact on the team.
Right.
You had a role.
It was tough. I had Randy and Pam Pearl as my physical therapist. Rob Marshall was working in there at the time. So they were helping me get stronger. And then Coach Miller, that guy had all sorts of different exercises from me when I wasn't going to physical therapy. And one particular, he had this mat. It was about 4 feet wide. And I had put these little booties on. There was a slide board.
Yeah.
And he put 20 minutes on the clock, and
back and forth you went.
Oh gosh, it was awful.
Yeah.
Torturous.
So it's a slide board. It's called a slide board, and so you look like an ice skater, a power, or, you know, figure skater, or not figure skater, but like a speed skater going back and forth.
Definitely not figure skater.
Back and forth. So I mean, it's a good tool to build up the hips, build up the hamstrings, build up those legs. So, so you kind of make your way back. But if I recall, did you make it back?
So I did come back around the holiday tournament for basketball. With my big old brace on.
So about 5 months.
Yeah. And I still talk to Pam. She's like, I was sort of against that.
Yeah.
Because I just knew that tendonitis would set in,
which
it did, and I had to go get my knee drained at some point, like mid-season.
Yeah.
But I came back, played. I mean, I was slow as molasses, but...
Which would have been in the season of 97.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we made it to state and won that. So it was great. It was great to be back, but I knew I wasn't back to 100%.
Yeah. It takes a while to get back, but you were still able to get back and contribute to a pretty darn good team.
Yeah. And, you know, we didn't have all the bells and whistles these kids have once they tear their ACL and all the things, but, you know.
It's definitely a lot different than now. I mean, it's a lot. The ACL rehab's quite a bit different now than it was way back when.
Right. But it was good. It was challenging. I know I had probably my bad days of being sad, and I just knew that God had a plan for me, and I'd be stronger. You know, in the end, there'd be something that would good that would come out of it.
Sure. I mean, I think obviously there's a physical part of that rehab, but I think a lot of people maybe that don't quite understand the mental aspect of that rehab, because you got to get confidence back. You got to get belief back in yourself. You got to get belief back in your ability that you can get to that level that you were at before.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was definitely not there. And you know, once again, my coaches, they believed in me. They would say, you know, you got to keep working hard. You'll get there. So it was always that push. And I think just knowing that we had won state championship the year before, I wanted to get back there as well.
Sure.
But I do remember after missing that whole junior volleyball season, I told Coach Peterson, I said, I don't think I'm going out my senior year for volleyball. I think maybe I'll go out for cheerleading or something. And he about died. He said, no, you're not. You are going out for volleyball. But I said that I maybe played a handful of varsity games my sophomore year, or got in, and then didn't play my junior year. And then it was just going to be kind of like,
felt like you were behind.
I felt like I was behind, and, you know, all those girls were graduating. What are we going to be like our senior year? Are we even going to be good?
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I stayed out.
Absolutely.
It was a pretty memorable senior year.
Yeah. So we'll kind of touch into that, because going into your guys' senior year, I don't think the expectations were real high for you guys to be real successful. Obviously, people expected you to be good, but probably not at the level of obviously the year before, because that year before team was loaded.
Right.
The last couple years before that, state final, state semi. So, you guys start the year kind of rough. You guys don't win the Shamrock Invite that year.
No.
For the first time, I think, in quite some time.
But we did get to the championship.
Yeah.
We played Pyrrhus.
Yep. Lost in 3.
It was so
close.
hot. Yes. And so I think that gave us a little bit of hope that, okay, hey, we can hang with these guys. I mean, Pyrrhus was Class B, probably top 5.
Yeah.
And so we thought we have a good chance of, playing well this year and seeing what happens. And the thing is, with our group of girls, we were just really good friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our team chemistry helped that, just us playing better. We'd get together, play sand volleyball over the summer or whatnot, and
Pretty close group.
it was a
Pretty tight group.
It was a tight group.
Yeah. And then you lose to Pius, and then you lose to GICC.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about that series. Let's talk about that series throughout the year now, because you're playing 4 times.
Right.
First time
Lose
regular
at-
season.
Lose at their place.
Kind of took
Terribly.
it to you a little bit. Yeah.
And I mean, he was not happy. He was so mad at us.
Yeah.
And then I think we see him at maybe
GI Northwest.
Yes, the GI Northwest tournament, and maybe we were a little bit closer with them then. And then we host conference championship, and we beat them. But I think everybody sort of thought that was sort of a fluke.
Yeah.
That we beat them. But at that point, we were winning games.
You guys were on a roll at that time.
Right. And I think that just kind of heightened the confidence level, and knowing that, okay, we have a good shot. But then we find out that GICC is in our district, which they've never been in our district ever.
Yeah.
And of course this year, or that year, they're in our district.
And no wild card.
No wild card.
Yeah. And as the season goes on, you guys stay pretty much 1 and 2 throughout the whole year.
Right.
Yeah. So you get them in conference, though. I remember that game, because it was everybody's like, oh my goodness, you guys beat them. Everybody's like, but each game before that was a little bit closer.
Right.
Took it to you in game 1 or in the first game, closer in game 2 at GI Northwest, beat them in conference, and now all the roads are leading to this big matchup in the district final with everything on the line.
Right.
And it's at Central City.
And that place was packed.
It was packed. What do you remember? I mean, it's fun to listen to you and Christy talk about it, but talk about the environment of that game, because it ends up being a closed door game, and then they have TVs outside, so because it's overflowed. Right. The crowd is electric. What do you remember about it?
Well, I remember prior to the game in the locker room, GICC had, I'm pretty sure, I want to say like 100% sure they had their boombox or whatever, the radio blasting. They're having a good time. I mean, we could hear them in their locker room having a good old time, laughing, cheering. And we did say, hey, let them do their cheering now. We'll be the ones cheering at the end.
Yeah.
And not knowing, I mean, I think we believed in that. I think we believed that we could do it. You know, Coach Tooley, she was adopting Toby at that time, so she was gone picking him up. And we told her, hey, we're going to win this for you because you can't be here. And that kind of gave us a little bit of motivation. And I mean, that place was rocking. That was a state championship game.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, we lose the first set, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, they got you like by 2, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was 15-12 or 15-11, something like that. And then we come back second set. I think Peterson's like, okay, you guys just need to settle down. They'll start making some mistakes, which I think they did. We just needed to capitalize a little bit when we had the serve.
Yeah.
And we ended up coming back and winning pretty good that second set. And then third set, we had the momentum going. But it was just so loud. I mean, that last point, I think I served the last point in that third set. And Jenny Kropp put her hands out. It was a lift. And I think we all just, I mean, the crowd went crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the student section, but we were going nuts. I mean, we had signs made, crowds screaming like crazy. I just remember Christy always said about that game, and you probably feel that same, like you couldn't hear each other on the court.
I mean, you were just hoping that Christy, I mean, she was our setter, that she'd hear us yell if we need, you know, if we won the set or not. But it was, I mean, our fan base was so awesome. I mean, everybody came to watch us, and our student body was amazing and supportive. But yeah, that game was something else, and thank God there wasn't a wild card. I mean, yes,
yeah, I mean, you
no.
beat them the one time. You know, now in the wild card, you know, you could have saw them again, and you just don't know. That's a fifth game. You don't know what's going to happen. Right. So you get to the state tournament then, and really, people probably thought it was kind of anticlimactic coming off the district final, but at the same time, you still got to win 3 games.
Right.
You know, you still got to finish the season out.
Right.
And you guys don't go down and play pretty good. You beat Southern Valley, North Bend, and then beat Hershey in the finals.
Yes.
And I think you had the last point.
I did. I blocked the girl.
Yeah.
And you know, that was, I mean, there might be an iconic picture out there of my face, but
we've blown that up a couple times.
I think Mike has shared it on Facebook a couple times, but no, it was good. You know, there was always that little bit of pressure too. Hey, we just won the last 2 championships. I mean, every year is a new season, and so you just didn't want to let your teammates down and your coaches down. So I mean, winning that championship our senior year was just as special as the first one that I was on.
Yeah. I was reading through our yearbook of senior year, just kind of doing a little bit of research, and in the yearbook article, it talks about, you know, the team was tight, which you mentioned, but one of the turning points of the year, maybe one of the real special moments of the year, was like the team bonding at your house after North Bend.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
I think we put up this big tent outside in our backyard. I mean, this tent, I think, fit 20 people. And I invited all of the girls over that were on varsity, and Mom had a bunch of food, and we all spent the night out in that tent. I mean, it was fun. I mean, there was no phone, you know, cell phones. I mean, we had cameras, you know, old school 35 millimeters cameras, taking pictures, having fun. And I think at one point we maybe we all loaded up in the old Jimmy, the Beast. Yeah,
the Beast.
And went into town and then came back. But I mean, we were, you know, just good kids, just having fun, having good laughs. I mean, I just remember laughing a lot, you know, and just having good times.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so we get into the senior basketball, and I think, you know, the expectation maybe going into basketball is obviously you guys are going to be pretty good again. So you had some pretty experienced players. You know, obviously you and Christy, but you start the year. You lose to Seward 30-28 in the 4th game of the year at Seward.
That was the
4th
score?
game. Yeah, 30-28. It's the only loss you guys had that year. What do you remember about that game in Seward?
I remember him just being disappointed after that, because I think we played terrible. I think we missed a lot of easy shots, and he was like, what's going on? And I think that was probably the turning point of like, okay, we need to get our crap together and just, you know, focus and not think that we're going to just come in and beat everybody without effort. And so, yeah, I do remember, I think it was a bad night for us.
Yeah.
And they beat us on it. I feel like
it was late. It was a late game. I don't remember if it was the last second shot, but I just remember I think that was the only game Christy fouled out ever too. So it was just everything was
just
not going your guys' way that night.
snowballing on us.
But you guys rebound, and you had some really tough games throughout the year. I think, back then, if you can recall, probably like GICC was a pretty big rival.
At GICC, I mean, they had Jenny Kropp who went to
Nebraska.
UNL, and I mean for volleyball, but she was 6'2" or 3", so had to play against her. Skylar was always really good, and Lakeview was always a great rivalry. David City Aquinas, I'd say like those 4 schools. And then North Bend, obviously, junior, senior year, they were a good team as well. But
I think the GICC games kind of stuck out that year. With Casey Kogel, she was a tough player.
Oh yeah.
That whole family had kind of that awkward shot, and she was no different than them. But then she could launch it from everywhere. And back then, the 3-point shot wasn't obviously as prevalent as it is now. So that was kind of different for you guys to defend. And you guys beat them during the regular season, 41-35, and then you beat them in the conference championship, 50-41. So that kind of gets you through the hump and sets you up for the district run.
Right. And I think our coaches did a great job of just scouting and just really focusing in on what their offense was. And at practice, we'd have to have our scout. I mean, we both, like the starters and the girls that were on the bench, we both had to learn their offense and then play against each other, because whoever was going to get thrown in, you better know who to be guarding or what they're going to be running and be familiar with that.
Yeah. So you get into the state tournament. First round game's Battle Creek, so it's 4 years in a row you got Battle Creek. And I was like, Coach Schnitzler just absolutely hated playing against you guys, because it was just, you guys were really methodical, great defense. They were a run and gun team, and you knocked them off in the first round, 45-32. That's the 4th time in a row you beat them at state tournament. And I know he still kind of talks about that when he brings that up. And then you get Gothenburg in the semis, kind of a similar situation. You beat them 48-40, and that was the 3rd year in a row you beat them in the state tournament. And then the big snowstorm hits. Right. And then you got North Bend in the final. And you beat North Bend the year before in the district final. Christy hits the last second shot at Columbus High. So it's kind of it's you and North Bend kind of on this collision course all year, that senior year.
Right. That state final against North Bend, that was just unique, just because we didn't have everybody, like all of our fans there because of that blizzard. And the first half was pretty close until Christy and Seth made those 3-pointers, which once again, we were not a 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
And so for them to hit those 2 and get us kind of ahead going into halftime, that helped us just think, okay, now we're kind of sitting good. We can pull out the Wausau.
Yeah.
The
no shot clock back then.
Yeah. But it's funny because Kelly Cameron, she played on that North Bend team. So there's days where once in a while, put on the old YouTube and throw that game on, and I'll be videotaping just her and I going at it.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because now she's here at Scotus, and her kids are, and
her sister as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to reminisce. And
I just remember you and Julie especially had pretty big games that game.
Yeah, Julie and we had a great, post-to-post connection and a lot of high-low passes. It was good. I mean, she was a great rebounder, and we just pushed each other. And Andrea would come in as well, and she made some big shots.
Yeah, big plays in that state final.
Yeah, and so we were everybody's, we were each other's cheerleaders.
Yep.
We were each other's, pushers, and we challenged each other. And so, once again, I think we were never out there just for us. Like, I'm not out there for me, and that's it. We were a team. We knew that everybody had a role. And how are we going to get, our goal was to get to the state. I mean, if we didn't, that was a big disappointment for us.
Yeah.
And so I think just working on our chemistry and teamwork and whatnot, that helped us.
So, you decide you go to CSM, College St. Mary's, right? You played volleyball first year?
Both 2 years.
Okay.
And then second year, my sophomore year, I decided to join the basketball team.
Okay.
After volleyball, I joined the basketball team. And that was a lot of fun, and I think if I wouldn't have gotten into pharmacy school, I would have switched over to basketball full time. and then not play volleyball.
Did you get into pharmacy school after your second year at St. Mary's?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So you go to St. Mary's for 2 years, and then you go into pharmacy school
Right.
at the Med Center.
Correct.
Okay. All right. What led you into pharmacy? Was that something you were always interested in growing up, or?
Not really.
No?
No. You know, it was either teaching and coaching or something in the health field.
Okay.
And my best friend Andrea was going into pharmacy. And I thought, well, you know, this sounds interesting. You know, I could have a family. It's not like a doctor where it's as many hours and that much schooling. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be a nurse. And so I just kind of thought, I'll just shadow a pharmacist and see what it's like. And didn't mind it. And, you know, my advisor in the College of St. Mary's is, you know, do the health field first. Go in that track, the biology track first, because it's a little bit harder. If you're in sports, you'll be able to see if you can handle it. And so that's, you know, what I did. And
So did you go your freshman year in the biology program,
Yes.
or did you kind of start to think about pharmacy school during your freshman year at St. Mary's?
right, it was probably more freshman, sophomore year. Then I thought, okay, I need to apply,
Yeah.
and got all the things and
Okay.
applied at the Med Center. I only applied at the Med Center, that's it. And I thought, well, if I don't make it, I'll just keep going to school
Yeah.
at College of St. Mary and see what happens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the path.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I honestly feel like I was very lucky because, you know, they only accepted probably about 60 kids into pharmacy school, and some of them were already in the RHOP or KHOP program.
So they
Some
had
were,
guaranteed spots.
right. Some of them already graduated from college after 4 years, and, you know, their prerequisite was at least 2 years of undergrad and certain classes, and I was getting all those in. And so
The rest is history
the
for
rest
that.
is history.
So you go to the Med Center, and is that where you and Mike meet then in pharmacy school?
Yes.
Or how'd you and Mike meet?
We met in pharmacy school. I'm a year older than him in pharmacy.
Okay.
Well, I'm a year older than him in life too.
Yeah.
But so my first year pharmacy school, I'm like an ambassador. They all come in for their interviews, and
Yeah.
Mike just happened to be in my group.
Okay.
And I mean, I never met the guy before, and there was a few other people, but I just remember, you know, showing him around the Med Center, and then telling him at the end, hey, I'll put it in a good word for you. I mean, I had zero pull
Yeah.
at that place, but, you know, just saying, I may never see this guy again.
Sure.
Well, then fast forward, you know, he gets into pharmacy school, and then we're in the same co-ed fraternity. And, you know, there's a lot of different events with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one particular event, you know, we're taking pictures, and I just remember going up to him and just, you know, pretending I'm like doing like an engagement picture.
Yeah.
And says, hey, this is going to be our engagement picture one day.
You said that to him?
Yes. I mean, totally joking.
Off the cuff, yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
thinking like, I'm even going to date this guy.
Sure.
So we weren't even dating at that time.
Yeah.
But we look back, because I still have that picture, and I look back and just laugh because I had no idea that, you know, 20 years, 5 kids later,
Yeah.
that was going to happen.
So when did you guys start dating then? So like after that event?
So we dated my 3rd year in pharmacy school, his 2nd year. And because we were friends, you know, we became friends. We had the same core friends being in that fraternity, and then we were officers together in Kappa Psi. And so we had to work, you know, we had to have to go do stuff together and
Spend a lot of time together
we
at that
did.
point.
And
yeah.
then one of our first dates was going to church.
Really?
So I said, this guy's a pretty decent guy.
Yeah.
And so then we only dated, I think it was less than a year, and we got engaged.
Wow, that's so cool. I didn't know that whole story. Obviously, you guys are lifelong friends, but I didn't know all the details of that story.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you guys get married. You end up. Tell me about then your early professional career, because you obviously you don't start in Columbus. Kind of take us through that road of where you guys started and how you ended up in Columbus.
Right. So we got married June 2004. I graduated in May, and then Mike had a whole nother year of pharmacy school. And so we lived in Omaha, and I was just a floater for Walgreens. And then after he graduated, we moved to Grand Island.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are my kids going to be the Crusaders?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah.
But we moved to Grand Island. He takes a job with USAVE. I am with Walgreens. We have Mallory. And eventually I get a job at the VA. So I'm full-time at the VA. And in 2011, I have Hannah. And 2 days after I deliver Hannah, Mike comes home and he says, hey, you want to move to Columbus? And I thought, what are you talking about? And he said, well, Bob's You Save in Columbus, their pharmacist is retiring and there's a job for me. I said, well, what about me? Mm-hmm. He said, well, Hy-Vee's looking for a part-timer. I mean, that was unheard of to get 2 pharmacy jobs open at the same time. And I thought this was meant to be. I mean, we really prayed about it, and one of the biggest things that was something very important to us is like sending our kids to a Catholic grade school, a Catholic high school, and Grand Island didn't have that grade school at that time. So we were honestly thinking about moving to Hastings to send our kids to Hastings St. Cecilia in the Catholic grade school there. But with my parents still living here, that was a draw to come back, and my brother was here still, and so I end up getting inducted that whatever.
The fall of 2011.
Yes, 2011, or was it
spring? Actually, in the spring of 2011.
Spring of 2011. That same day, I come back and we interview for these pharmacy jobs, and I mean, mind you, I just had a baby like a week ago.
Yeah.
And we interview, we get the jobs. So we're putting our house up on the market. We're telling our old jobs, hey, we're leaving.
Yeah.
And we pack and move to Columbus that summer. So it was crazy. It was a whirlwind, but it was, in my mind, one of the best decisions for our family.
Sure.
And so it's been great.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember when Mallory was born, because you guys were still in Grand Island. Scotus went and played a basketball game, I believe, or volleyball. I can't remember if it was volleyball or basketball, but I was serving as the athletic trainer, because Pam, Randy, and I rotated coverage. So it had to have been basketball season because I was coaching football. But I remember you brought Mallory to the game. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't know.
It was a GICC game. I just remember holding her a little bit, talking with you, and then a couple years later you're back in town. And obviously Christy and I were obviously excited to have you guys back. And Car just says we're moving back about the same time. So it was good to get some fellow classmates and other Scotus grads around our time just back in town.
Yeah, coming back for me, the transition was pretty easy. I think we were looking for just coming back and seeing familiar faces like you and Christy and the Cargises. Not that I hung out with them in high school, but they had twins, Sophia and Ian were going to be in the same class as Mallory and Emma. So it was like, okay, now we can, develop a relationship with these guys. Brett and Angie Rusher were back. Gonkas were they were here, and so it was kind of fun to see everybody and just like old parents that we grew up with.
Yeah.
And just reconnecting with them. I think the transition for Mike might have been a little bit harder just because he's like, I don't want to be known as Kim Reckert's husband.
Yeah.
And I says, you're not. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
but he was at the beginning.
He was at the beginning. Now he's,
No, but he's obviously become a good friend of mine,
yes.
and it's been fun. So, I mean, you're pretty involved. You're pretty involved in church at St. Bon's. You're pretty involved in school at Scotus here. What's been, if you kind of think about some important moments, have there been a couple that stick out to you that have helped maybe with that transition, or even Mike's involvement with school that you can recall?
Probably our first time we really got involved was at the St. Bon's Night of Entertainment. And it's funny because Brett and Angie, and then Chad and Liz Gonka, they were the chairs for the Night of Entertainment. And we're at a St. Bon's Home and School meeting, and they come up to Mike and I and Nate and Ashley and says, hey, we need we need co-chairs for next year. And we had never even gone to the Night of Entertainment. And we were pretty new to the parish. And this is, we need some chairs. Will you guys do it? And we said, okay, well, this will kind of get us a foot in the door of, learning how to volunteer, just diving right in.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of opened the gate of opportunity to volunteer and just give back and, connect with the parishioners. And I don't know, I love it. I love calling people or chit-chatting. I don't always love asking for money, but it's been so great.
Yeah.
And so from there, it kind of went, okay, now as a part of the parish festival, and then
St. Bon's' activities have really grown over the last probably 10, 11 years, it seems.
Yeah.
With those types of activities.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't have a bazaar, so we needed something to kind of offset that. And, the Night of Entertainment has grown. We have the entertainment, and and everybody likes to attend. I mean, it's not just for the older generation. I mean, we have young families that come, and we have the silent auction, grand auction, but it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. I mean, I was still, Mallory and Emma are in the same class together. It's been fun to watch those two have a pretty strong friendship throughout their entire school year, it seems. And they may not necessarily hang out all the time, but that they're pretty close. And I think, seeing those two get together over the years has been really, really cool. And we'll kind of touch on the senior year here in a second. But, Mallory's a senior this year, and she has an ACL injury during her career that had to kind of be a little bit of a flashback moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, she tore it her freshman year basketball season, and I remember, getting the call. She was at school still, and I get the call that she tore it, and I mean, I just kind of broke down in tears because I knew the road to recovery was not going to be easy. And just, she just played her freshman year of volleyball for the varsity team, so I knew she might not get to play her sophomore year. I mean, that was questionable. But just the emotional and mental, I mean, I knew she could probably get back physically, but it was more of, trying to keep her spirits up, trying to remind her, hey, this is all in God's plan. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but sometimes coming from a parent, you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But, you were her physical therapist, and you did a phenomenal job of getting her back. And then Andrew Sheridan is the athletic trainer here, and I mean, you two were her sounding board. You probably saw tears and happiness and her loud laugh.
Yeah, I love it.
But you guys have always been in her corner and always her cheerleaders. So, I think that helped her road to recovery a little bit easier. And just, it was sad to see her have her, but it's made her a stronger player and maybe a better leader out of it.
And I think as my girls have gone through the school and get involved, and you see injuries, from a professional standpoint, but at the same time, like especially in this case, you're one of my best friends, and to see Mallory go down, it's just it really tugs at your heart a little bit. So I just remember working with her, and there were some good, there were some highs and lows for her, but I just remember putting her in a couple big moments for her when she first got a run. And she smiled like crazy. I remember sending you the video. And then I remember when we started volleyball approach jumps with her. And it was just kind of like, she made this big jump. And she's like, okay, I can do this. And she had a little bit of knee pain there throughout the year, but obviously it leads to a phenomenal senior season.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? They get back to the state tournament. She's going to play college volleyball. So how cool is that to just kind of see her get through it all, and now she's, going on to play college volleyball.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy for her and her teammates. I mean, I went into volleyball camp this last summer. The first day of volleyball camp, I walk in and I see these girls swinging at the ball. I thought, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be good. I mean, they just need to buy into the idea of being good. They have the potential to get to state. And, I can say that, but do they always believe me? No. And I thought, man, if I can help them in any way, whether it's just the mental or just some words of encouragement, but, I think sometimes these girls they're not always bought into the idea of getting to state. But, man, that district final against Okalala, that reverse sweep, I was pacing the hallways, and I was so excited for them.
Yeah,
it was so fun. It was so fun. It was such a great season. They had so many close games, 5-setters. And they were relentless. I mean, if they were behind, they didn't really get rattled. So I was super proud of, the seniors, they did a great job leading the team for volleyball. And, I'm excited for Mallory to go to CCC and have Coach Young take her under her wing and see what happens.
Yeah, which is awesome to see. And I think then that kind of springboard, because they did win a lot of close games. They won a lot of close games. That leads them into basketball season. A lot of the core group there, some of the girls that are running cross country, obviously Emma's joining the team in basketball. And then they kind of continue that with another great winter season. They get to state tournament. So it was fun to see them achieve those goals this year as parents and also alum, right?
Yeah. And, we were at the parent meeting for basketball, and we told Coach Ritter, we said, hey, all these girls are coming off of some sort of state tournament or state go event from the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want to keep it going. We'll do whatever we can to support our girls and push them and make them work hard. For you, whatever we can do as parents, even if it's a good attitude and trying to keep them like, hey, sometimes it is going to be hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, with you and Christy in the bleachers and us kind of having to sit by each other, and then just getting to experience that with, our best, you guys are best, some of our best friends, and then we get to see our girls succeed and have a great season and get to state. And
it was fun. It was a great ride for sure. And I think, the coaches did a fantastic job during the basketball season this year. And now we got Mallory playing some soccer this year, which is kind of fun. Which is good. I mean, selfishly, I'm she's playing goalie. Never really played before. Doing a good job though. I'm her goalie coach, so I get to spend every day with her and Ainsley. It's fun. She's doing good.
She's enjoying it. I mean, she comes home and she says, I made a couple stops today.
Yeah.
And she says, once I get to know the rules, once I really understand the rules, she says, I think I'll be good.
Yeah.
But, she was so excited. I mean, it's so new to her.
Yeah.
But she said, what the heck, why not?
Yeah.
If they're allowing, if they let me be on the team, then I'm going to do it. And I can stay in shape. I can be around all my best friends. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the first couple of days, she's rattling off all this soccer stuff. I'm like, oh, what? Hold up there, girl.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Oh, it's been great. And obviously Hannah's getting involved in athletics, and you've been able to coach her with volleyball. It's kind of fun to coach Hannah too, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Mallory and Hannah are two completely different players. Mm-hmm. I mean, Hannah's a little bit more reactive. She's a quick instinct, and so it'll be fun. She's a setter. Mallory was a hitter for volleyball. But, they're two different players. So it'll be fun to see her kind of step into the high school years and see her evolve as a student athlete. Mm-hmm. And, I think she's excited. I think she's kind of excited that Mallory's moving on and, she gets to kind of
carve her own path.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, your boys are obviously at St. Bon's.
Yes.
So what's it like to have, obviously the Columbus Catholic schools have been really important to your family. What does that mean to you guys to be able to send the kids through Columbus Catholic schools and now obviously through Scotus?
I mean, it's super important to us. I mean, Mike and I both attended Catholic grade school, high school, and, we have wonderful teachers that care and love care about our kids, and they're receiving great education, they're receiving a Catholic. I mean, our faith is incorporated into daily, instruction every day, so it's very fruitful to see, all the things coming out of the kids and, how they present themselves each and every day. And I think it attributes to them attending Catholic, school. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, let's get it. Kind of talk about some of the things that you're specifically involved in here at school. You're a big part of the alumni volleyball tournament. Mm-hmm. That's got to be kind of fun to set those things. It's a lot of work, but it's also kind of fun. Every other year you guys play around Thanksgiving, right? That's got to be kind of fun to see a lot of those girls come back, obviously with a rich history.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's like a sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And I mean, when we get back in the gym, it's just like full-on competition. I mean, nobody really wants to lose. Yeah. And it's fun to get together. I try to set it up where, you're with the girls that you played with if we can get a couple years all together. But 98, we're one of the older ones. I mean, we are one of the older ones anymore, so it'll be interesting to see if we have a team this year, because alumni volleyball is in November of this year, so everybody be watching out for the link to sign up.
It is fun to watch because obviously and alumni soccer is very similar. It's competitive, but it's just a fun thing. They're not fundraisers or anything. It's just time to come back, get together, have a good time. Right. Obviously, when Mr. Peterson's there to watch you guys, and it kind of amps the level up a little bit.
Oh, 100%. And, this year I kind of want to still do it just because Mallory would maybe have an opportunity to play against me.
Sure.
But I don't know if I want to put my body through that, honestly.
Yeah. And now, obviously, coming up is the Columbus Catholic Schools Gala. And you're a chairperson of that. That's going to be on April 12th with the theme of this, for those about to rock. Who's on that committee with you guys?
So it's Mike and I, and then we have Jack and Lisa Mears, Carrie and Fred McGuire, so we're the chairs. Mm-hmm. And then we have Anthony and Jenny Kruger, Julie and Chad Yarkowski, and then Tammy and Travis Weber are our vice chairs. Okay. So we're all gearing up for the night, working hard. We just had a meeting last night, but it's been eye-opening. I'd say that would probably be the word to describe it, of how important this night is, how important gala is for just our school to keep functioning, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge fundraiser for us, so it takes everybody, whether you attend, whether you're alumni, whether you're a parent, to either volunteer, donate, attend, all the things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people realize like how much school actually costs and compared to what they pay in tuition. I mean,
the cost per student.
Right.
It helps defray that cost a little bit.
Right.
How did you get involved in the gala committee?
So, who asked us? Borchers asked us. Lisa and Cleet Borchers, because it's usually a couple from each parish.
Yep.
And Lisa and Cleet Borchers were on the committee last year, and they called us and said, hey, you want to be chairs? And we knew eventually the time would come, and we just said, well, might as well just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, who
There's
knows?
no perfect time to do it.
Right.
But,
Not a perfect. I didn't really think about graduation, and I did, but I didn't. You know.
Yeah.
And Mike would say I can never, that I never say no to things. He's like, when are you ever going to say no?
But it's hard though. I mean, and I kind of, as an alumni, you kind of go through that a little bit, right? You feel like you need to give back. You touched on that earlier. It's a way of giving back. So you get involved in the coaching, you get involved in the different activities. Whether rock talk and those different things. So a little bit over the years, you get involved in these different things, and I think gala is like the biggest thing to probably get involved in. Chrissy and I have been asked to do that, at least with soccer and stuff. It's hard for us, but eventually our time might come for that as well. But I think it's a busy time.
But it is rewarding.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fun. I mean, for me as an alumni, to reconnect with alumni that don't live here, and maybe just asking, hey, you should come back, or hey, you want to buy a lottery ticket, supporting our your alma mater.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I mean, I love to touch base with people and give back. I mean, this place gave us a lot of opportunities and just great education. I mean, for me, not everybody had the same experience as me. I get that, but it was a positive environment for me, and whatever I can do to give back, I'll do.
Yeah, and obviously the school is very appreciative of that. So, but I think it is a good way to connect, and whether you're in person or now with technology today, it's easy for people that can't maybe be in person. They can participate online in different ways, so they can still participate in the activity and still support the school.
And with gala, I mean, the silent auction and some of our grand auction items are going to be online to bid on.
Yeah.
So you don't have to attend to be active in the night. You can still be bidding online, and so that's been a new change in the last couple of years to add that on, and just try to raise money for our school.
Yeah, and I think you guys have done a good job of being pretty social or active on social media. So there's always a QR code out there for it seems like daily there's something popping up about some different things. So there's some really cool things. I've gone through the list of the grand auction and silent auction. Some pretty cool things out there.
Yeah, we're trying to change it up. I think in the past it was easy to just do the same things over and over again. We're trying to be innovative and try to just bring in some local things that you don't have to fly out to Chicago or Vegas. We're trying to do some local fun events for families and couples, but then we do have some of the big trips as well.
Yeah. Well, what is it, I guess, kind of leans into, as we're getting close to wrapping up here, but what makes you proud to be an alum of Scotus?
Probably the Catholic education and just the tradition and the teacher. I mean, it's fun to look back and see how long some of these teachers have stayed at Scotus, and listening to some of these podcasts. I mean, it was one of the best places to teach it. And you're part of. I mean, we were part of something special in terms of sports. And I don't think people, I mean, at the time, we didn't realize.
Kind of take it for granted.
Oh, 100%. And so, all the things, I mean, just having a good social bubble and keeping us safe and I don't know, just the good friends. There's all sorts of things that, I'm proud of being an alumni of. And so.
And as a parent, what type of impact do you think, or do you feel SCOTUS has been able to bestow on you as a parent and obviously with your children? So what kind of impact has SCOTUS had on you as you reflect back on that?
I mean, I think it's helped, personally, I think it's helped, me grow in my faith, obviously, and just the opportunity to give back and step up and, make the sacrifices. Sometimes when I am volunteering for things and I'm away from my family, my kids know, like, this is for the greater good. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes you have to sacrifice not watching that movie at nighttime because you're working on something else for the school. Mm-hmm. And so I think it just made me a better leader, honestly, mm-hmm. and it's pushed me, and so.
That's great. Final question. Describe Scotus Central Catholic in one word.
Memorable. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was hard. I'm like, special, memorable. I mean, as a student, I have so many great memories. As alumni coming back for different things, I have great memories. Just coming back to galas when we were just freshly married and just having fun. Mm-hmm. And now as a parent and watching my kids go through their activities and coaching them in junior high volleyball, and just some great memory. Like, it's memorable. Yeah. And I'm always gonna remember these times.
And it creates kind of a special bond with your kids because now they're also alums.
Right.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thanks for your time and coming in today. It's always great to get together with you, just personally, and we're good friends. So it was fun to sit down, listen to you, and share your story, and actually, even learn some things about you today. So
there you go.
Thank you for your service to SCOTUS in many different roles and activities, and good luck to you guys with the upcoming Columbus Catholic Schools Gala. If you're interested in hearing more Shamrock Green Room episodes, subscribe to us and rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on our social media channels, Scotus Central Catholic on Facebook, X and YouTube, and Columbus Catholic Schools on Instagram. If you have some ideas for some guests on the podcast, please email me at coachbrez@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us in the Shamrock Green Room.